Jake here for American Trucks, and in this video we're taking a look at the S&B cold air intake with the oiled cleanable cotton filter fitting 2003 to 2007 Ram 2500 and 3500s with the 5.9 liter Cummins diesel. This intake is going to appeal to the Cummins powered Ram owner who's looking for a premium fully enclosed intake setup that's going to provide improvements in both power and in sound. This is a high quality, no tune required intake that provides you with all the benefits of an aftermarket intake and an oil filter with the consistency and heat mitigation properties of your stock setup. Sort of a best of both worlds type of scenario. Cold air intakes have long been popular with truck owners, and for good reason. They're typically pretty simple to install, they're reasonably affordable, and they're effective in improving your driving experience by increasing both sound and/or power. But not all intakes are created equal. Many on the market are just open filters in an engine bay, which, while they can pull in a greater volume of air than your stock intake, if you're really going to be putting a lot of work into your truck, they can also pull in a lot of hot air from the engine bay itself, and that's where something like this one from S&B comes in. S&B claims that this provides you with a 42% increase in airflow versus your stock intake, and that overall it's 99.51% efficient in its filtering. So let's take a bit of a closer look at the different components to see how they do that. Now, the biggest and most obvious feature here is that this is a fully enclosed intake system. Now, this is a large air box and it is larger than your stock one, but it does pull air from the same location. But there's a difference. This inlet is designed to have a much tighter seal than your factory one, and the seals around the box are also tighter than your factory setup, meaning that this is going to be much more airtight than stock, and thus it's not going to be pulling in any hot air from the engine bay, which translates to more efficiency and power for you. There's also one more trick that this thing has up its sleeve. You might have noticed this little guy right here. So on the bottom of the intake box, you've got another inlet, which you could plumb right up, or you can just cover right up and have this pull right from the cold air inlet behind your grill. Now, by this point, you've surely also noticed this rather enormous looking air filter. This has a lot of surface area, which is great because you're going to need a big filter for such a large volume of air coming in. The 5.9 Cummins is also obviously quite a large engine, and it needs to feed a big old turbocharger, so the more air you can get coming in, the better. This is also an oiled filter, unlike your stock paper filter, so you get some additional benefits to go along with that. On the surface of the pleats here, there is a thin layer of oil that's extremely helpful in capturing small particles of dust, dirt, and other debris. It really just adds an extra layer of protection to help keep unwanted stuff from getting sucked into your intake and your engine. And you can also reuse oiled filters. So this is going to help save on maintenance costs, since you really only need to clean and re-oil this occasionally. And if properly maintained, these filters can last you a heck of a long time. So you don't have to worry about replacing your air filter every year or so. And if you drive your truck in dusty or dirty conditions regularly, this is going to be extremely helpful. And since I know a lot of you Cummins owners tend to hang on to your trucks for a long time too, it should be a nice benefit that you don't have to go and keep buying an air filter every year or so. Now, while we're on the subject of this filter, there is one more thing I want to jump back to on the box, and you probably picked up on it already. You also get this cool little window on the top here. Now, this is just a piece of plexiglass here with a rubber seal around the edge. And it's going to give you a nice view of the filter inside, so you can check it out while it's still in the engine bay. And it just snaps in with this rubber seal, and you can pretty easily remove this as well. So, makes it nice and easy to remove and install, especially because that's where you get access to the filter without having to take the box out. Moving over to the intake tube here, your sensor location is also adjusted on the intake tube to account for the additional airflow, and this is specifically designed to make sure you don't get a check engine light. So this is going to work with stock tunes or with aftermarket ones as well, which is really important because, again, I know a lot of you Cummins owners like to tune your rigs. Now, speaking of the intake tube, this is totally unbaffled and it's quite large, so it's got some nice resonance to it. So between this and the filter and the air box, you're going to get some additional sound here, especially that turbo noise, which, of course, let's be honest, it's one of the best parts of driving a turbo diesel truck. I love hearing them spool up, and if you want to get a little bit of extra turbo noise, this is going to do it for you. So despite all the nice features that this thing has, that sound might actually be the best part, but I'll leave that up for you all to decide. Construction here is all pretty high quality as well. The box and the intake tube are made from durable ABS plastic, which is strong, lightweight, and has really good heat resistance properties. Now the clear lid that I was talking about earlier is constructed from polycarbonate, and all the seals on here are made from really thick premium silicone, so it's nice and strong and durable. That filter that we were looking at earlier too is an 8-layer cotton media design with some seriously deep pleats to it. I don't know if you'll be able to appreciate that on camera here, but this is a pretty stout setup, suffice it to say, so it's one that's going to last you a long time. And I think that makes it a good time to talk about the price. Now this whole setup is going to run you around $400. That's pretty standard for the category. You're getting some really nice features here, and even though the intake tube isn't necessarily metal, and the box isn't the most visually stunning piece of jewelry you're ever going to put in your engine bay, it is still something that's nice to look at, and it's a really high quality item that's going to give you good sound and good results, and it's very easy to service and put together. So overall, I think for what you're getting here, this represents a pretty darn good value. When it comes to installation, we're gonna give this a 1 out of 3 on our difficulty meter. It should only take you around an hour to get it installed. Overall, this is a pretty simple installation, and you get everything you need to get it installed on your Ram included in the box, even your clamps and hardware here. Not much more we can say about it here on the table, so with that, let's hand things over to one of our AT customers who's gonna walk you through the installation process.
Tools I used in the installation of this S&B cold air intake is my 1/4 inch drive ratchet, a small quarter drive extension, this one's approximately 4 inches long, a 7mm deep socket, an 8mm deep socket, a 10mm deep socket, a 13mm deep socket. I have a T10 Torx bit, Phillips head screwdriver, flathead screwdriver, side cutters, and my magnetic tray. Hi, my name is Devin. Today we're gonna be installing S&B cold air intake on a 2005 Dodge Ram 2500 with the ISV compass. Very first step you want to do is set the parking brake, put the truck in, make sure the truck's in park, and put the keys in your pocket. I like to keep the keys in my pocket to make sure that no one can accidentally start the truck while I'm working on it. And we're going to disconnect the negative battery cable on both batteries. S&B suggests that you keep the negative battery cables disconnected for at least 2 hours. They warn that you could get a check engine light if you don't. If you're like me, you've had to change out the negative battery cables due to age. So mine aren't exactly the same as factory. Here I have a 13mm deep socket on my 1/4 inch ratchet. Just gonna loosen this up and the cable should come right off. Make sure you push it off to the side. You don't want the cable to sneak its way back up and touch like that. On this side, it is also a 13mm socket or a 1/2 inch. Should also be able to just rock this side to side. Sometimes they stick. Pull it up and set it off to the side. Next, what you want to do is remove the plug from the IAT. That is the intake air temperature sensor. You want to pull it up from this rubber grommet right here, and then you kind of push down and pull back on this. Yours may be stiff. Be very gentle with it. Pulls off like that. Tuck this off to the side. Next, we're going to take our flathead screwdriver and we're going to loosen this top band clamp. You don't have to remove it all the way. Just get it nice and loose. I'm going to unsnap the airbox lid. You have these clamps right here. Simply pull them back. You have one on the front. You have two on the side. And then you simply pull the airbox lid towards you and push it forward and it'll come off. We have the factory air filter here. remove that, being very careful not to get any debris down in the intake. You can set that off to the side. Next, you're going to loosen this nut to remove the air box. I have my quarter drive ratchet, my 10mm socket. I also suggest getting a magnetic tray if you don't have one. Store the nut for later. Once you remove the nut, simply take the air box. Be careful, pull straight up, and it'll come right out. You may feel a little bit of resistance, and that's because you have these plastic fasteners that they fit in these rubber areas here. You can set that off to the side. Next, we're going to remove the band clamp securing the intake tube to the turbo. I like to use a my 1/4" ratchet, a small 1/4" extension, and a 7mm socket. You can use a flathead screwdriver if you'd like. I just prefer sockets. And again, you don't have to completely remove it. Put it back. It'll come right off. Set it off to the side. Now that we have it off, let's put the new on. The next step, we're going to install the gasket going into the airbox. S&B also provides an extra little base to block off the bottom if you're concerned about heat. I'll show you that in a minute. The gasket goes right inside. I want to just... This gasket has a shoulder here, a little channel, and you want to stick the edge of the plastic into that channel. And just kind of gently push it in all the way around. And voila. S&B also gives you hardware to put this base on the bottom if you'd like. If you're concerned about heat, you would do this. If you want more airflow, I want more airflow, leave it off. So you have these little plastic pieces here. Again, you're going to stick those right in these rubber grommets down here. Once you get the gasket on, and if you've decided to use the optional base plate on the bottom here, set it off to the side. The next step, we're going to remove the intake air temperature sensor, and we're going to transfer it over to the new intake. As you can see, mine are pretty corroded. S&B actually gives you new hardware to use. I'm going to use my 1/4 drive ratchet and a T10 Torx bit. You want to make sure you press firmly into the screw. That way you do not have the sensor out, be very careful not to get any debris on the sensor portion or drop it or damage it. So we have the new intake tube, we have the supplied hardware, gasket, and 2 screws. gasket in place. Making sure that the sensor is facing away from this end here. Push it into place using the supplied Phillips head screws. I'm actually going to use my Phillips head screwdriver to start them. Be very careful. Make sure that you don't cross thread anything. I'm going side to side to ensure that I crush the gasket evenly and we don't have any leaks. The next step, we're going to use the 2 supplied band clamps. Time to get those. And we're going to use the coupler here. Go ahead, get your band clamps. Position them over the coupler. Band clamp should rest in these channels here. I like to keep things very neat, so I try to keep my band clamps facing the same direction and keep the screws close together. Then you want to put your coupler onto the intake. Be very careful that you do not push it in too far. A little bit of debris in there. It's not good. Want to take your coupler, kind of size it up first. Then you want to put your band clamp.
Help me, I'm dying.
Put your band clamps over the end of the tube and make sure that you don't push in too far. Next, you actually have a nice channel, like a little mark right here, to show you how far you should slide that coupler. I would try to keep your band clamps, the heads, in line with this casting mark. I'm going to use my quarter drive ratchet. Again, a small extension. The size of the extension doesn't have to be, perfect. It could be 3 to 4 inches. I just like to use one to kind of get me away from the coupler, and you just snug the clamp. Do not over tighten it. Just make sure it's snug and kind of go around and make sure that the coupler is against that little ridge. Now, go ahead and install it in the engine bay. You want to slide the end of that coupler over the turbo. It goes on there pretty easily. I actually like to leave it loose for now. We'll get the air box on there, and once we have everything in its final resting position, we'll tighten it down. The next step is installing the actual air filter box. Kind of push it in here, simultaneously pushing the intake tube into the box. You want to push it down firmly. You want to make sure you get those 2 plastic connectors into their grommets. Go ahead and get your nut. You can gently tighten this down now. Again, I have my 10mm socket, my quarter drive ratchet. good. You're gonna wanna then install the filter over the tube. The filter is kind of oval shaped. It's much easier if you have the filter kind of vertical. You can press it onto the end of the tube, making sure that the filter is all the way on. I have my 8mm socket, a small extension, and a quarter drive ratchet. And I'm going to just gently snug it up. You don't want to over tighten it. Otherwise we could crush the intake tubing. Next step, we're going to get the plastic cover and the grommet. Kind of discard the plastic there. It's actually Ziploc bags, kind of nice. Make sure you remove plastic. You may have to remove the glove. Use your fingernail a little bit. Don't use any sharp objects. You can scratch the plastic. This grommet has a little channel here. You're going to want to match the shape. Stick it in that channel. Make sure it's pressed all the way in. And you have another channel here that'll slide right into the edge. We have that installed all the way. Put my glove back on, and I'm gonna tighten up the clamp. It's attached from the intake to the turbo. I'm going to use my quarter drive ratchet, my 8mm socket, and an extension. We're going to snug up this clamp. Next, we're going to take our connector here, plug it in, nice and firm. I'm going to use a zip tie. You can also use electrical tape. It's not included with the kit. Just to kind of shore up this wiring here. I do not want it to fall onto the exhaust manifold. It could cause some problems down the road. I'm going to snip my side cutters. The last step is we're going to reconnect the battery. Going to get my quarter drive ratchet and a 13mm socket. Battery clamps are just like hose clamps. You don't want to over tighten them. You just want to snug them up. And we're all set.
That about does it here for our review and install of the S&B cold air intake with the oiled cleanable cotton filter fitting 2003 to 2007 Ram 2500 and 3500s with the 5.9 liter Cummins diesel. Thanks so much for watching, and as always, for all things Ram, be sure to stick with us right here at AmericanTrucks.com.